Hello magical hands and welcome to the channel. If it's your first time, hi, my name is Jessica, and if you're a returning subscriber, thank you for coming back. Please do not make it your last time of seeing this channel by hitting on the subscribe button and turning on post notifications so you get notified every time we post a new video. So for today's video, we'll go about the making of this dress that you can see right here on the screen. And if it's something you're interested in learning, make sure to keep on watching. And also, this video will not be sectioned in any parts. I mean, you get the whole tutorial here. You get to make the whole dress from scratch. Without any further ado, let's get into the tutorial of today proper. I have exactly 3 yards of this floral cotton fabric. This is 100% cotton, and I will also be starting with the front piece of the dress. I'll take out a fresh pattern paper and I'm going to rule a straight line at the top part, just as seen, which will serve as the starting line. Now from that line there, I'm going to mark from my shoulder to my bust point, which is 11. Leaving the tape at the top part, I'll still mark to my under bust line, which is 14.5. Leaving the tape there, I went ahead to mark to my half length, that is where I want the top part of the blouse to stop, and I marked 19 inches. I'll make straight line across this point and I'll indicate what each of this lines stands for. We have BP for bust point, under bust, half length, or waistline. I mark 3 inches at the neck width and I mark 3 inches at the neck depth. I'll connect those 2 points together with a curve, which is just a universal neckline measurement, although we are not using it. I then marked my shoulder measurement divided by 2, still on that starting point, and then I marked downwards 1 inch where I have my shoulder measurement, and I connected a slanted line to meet the neck width that we have there. From my shoulder line, I marked downwards my round armhole measurement divided by 2, which I use 8, and then I will extend it to the right side after connecting it together. I'll mark the midpoint of my armhole line, which is 4 inches, and I'll mark inwards half an inch at that 4 inches there. I'll place my curve ruler just as seen, making sure a part of it is touching the shoulder, a part is touching the half an inch, and a part is touching the base. And in one swipe, I will get my armhole curve. Now I can go ahead and mark the chest line. Just place your tape right at that point there and mark your chest line, depending on how much cleavage you want to put out there. I am quite busty, so I just marked downwards 7 inches because I do not want to put anything out there, and I'll make a straight line there. So do well to find yours and apply it. Now we'll take my apex measurement, and your apex is your nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2. I'll mark that apex measurement from the chest line to the half length of this pattern paper. Now make a straight line across that point. Our bust point is our focus here, so I'll just dot it there. On the left side of the under bust line, I marked half an inch, and on the right side, I marked 1 inch. Now I'm going to connect this 1 inch down straight to the half length, and I'll do same to the half inch on the other side. I'll use the curved side of my ruler just as seen to connect a curve from the under bust line to meet the bust point. But you're going to try to make sure that this curve is not too sharp on the bust point. Just blend it into the bust point, but it should not be too sharp and obvious. I'll do same to the other side as well. Now on the chest line, I marked half an inch on the left side, and on the right side, I still marked the same 1 inch. I'll go ahead with my curve and I will still connect a curve, but you can see that the curve of the top part is not as deep as that of the lower bodice. And this way you should have something that looks like this. Now from the chest line, from the bust point, I mark upwards 2 inches, and at that 2 inches I made sure it was at least half an inch wide. Now I'm going to create a curve from that we have there. I'll just create it to meet this half an inch that we marked there, and then I'll complete the curve from that point downwards to meet the apex or the dart measurement on the under bust line. Now take the measurement of the left cup, which I have 3.5 there, and I'm going to mark it on the other side, but this time around I'll add extra half an inch, and that's because the right side of the cup carries more weight than the left side, so the right side should be bigger. So I'll just place my ruler as seen, and I'll just connect the curve from the under bust line, and I'll just blend it into the armhole line. This is what my corset cups looks like. I'll start taking my round bodice measurement. On the armhole line, I'll take my bust measurement divided by 4, and I'm going to take this dart measurement that we have at the chest line. I'm going to replace it on that armhole line there, and then I'll skip to my under bust line. I'll take my round under bust measurements divided by 4. I'll replace the dart measurement I have there on the half length of the waistline. I'll do the same thing, and I'll take the dart measurement and I'll replace it. I'll connect the lines together just as seen. Now I'll move to the shoulder line and I'll start marking the straps of my sleeve, and I'm going to just mark 2 inches all the way down. I'll just connect it as seen. I'll also indicate that line as strap, and I will move to the cups. So for my cups, I'm going to start marking 2 inches downwards, just exactly as you can see in the video. So that is going to enable me split my cups into 3 parts. Now I'll start labeling all my patterns. I will write 1 and 2 to differentiate the cups, and then the top part of the cup I'll write T, and I'll make sure to also write 1 and 2 on the top part so we know which side is for which side. So I'll just draw my arrow placement on all the pieces, showing how this is supposed to be sewn together so you don't mix it up while it's on your fabric. I'll take out the cups of each of them. I'll just cut out the top part where I indicated T, and then I'm going to join it together with my sellotape so that it becomes one whole piece. So I cut out half yard from the 3 yards of fabric that I have, so I'll use the half yard for the front piece. I'm going to fold it up as seen, and I'm going to place all my patterns. I also went ahead, I took my time and I drew out all the necessary allowance. I added ½ an inch all around except for the side seam allowance that I used 1 inch for. I'll also do the same thing for my lining piece. For my lining piece, I have exactly 2 yards of lining. I'm also going to use ½ yards for the top part, and then the remaining 1½ yards I'll use it for the lower bodies. Now I'll start sewing this up. I'm going to first of all keep the pattern papers aside, and then I'll arrange it up just as seen. Just make sure that whenever you are being confused, just take your pattern paper to be sure that you're doing the right thing. So I'll start sewing the lower bodies. I'll place them on each other as seen, and I'll sew up as indicated. Now that I've sewn the lower bodies, we'll move over to the cup pieces. I'm going to start arranging them again. Make sure to use your pattern paper as a guide to arrange them so you don't mix it up. Also, when you don't arrange your cups properly, you might mix up the joining of the top piece of the cups. Just make sure to use your pattern paper to be sure you're doing the right thing. So you place them up on each other as seen, and you will sew them up. So if you take your measurements well, your cups should be equal when you are done sewing it up, just as seen. Repeat same process for the lining, and now we are going to start attaching the top part of the corset. So now I'm going to start placing them on each other. I'll first of all arrange them just as seen, and then I'll take it up to my sewing machine to join them up same way I've indicated. So the easiest way to join it is to make sure that you notch the midpoint of the top part and the midpoint of the main corset itself so that everything aligns properly while you're sewing it up. And like I said before, if your measurement is accurate, everything should be equal. There should be no excess. And you repeat the same process to all the other cup pieces, including the lining. So now I'm going to iron my cups, and I'll need a round surface to iron it well. So I'll use my tailor's hammer to open up the seams just as seen. Now we are going to attach the cups to the lower bodies itself, and the best way to attach this is to first of all pin both the cups and the lower bodies at the dart area where we have that sewing line showing. We are going to pin them together so it aligns properly. I'll take out the pin, and this is what it looks like. Just make sure that that line aligns where it. Now we are going to pipe the corset area, or we are just going to sew the allowance down. I think another term is also piping, and we are going to sew it just exactly as seen. This way we are going to have a case to wire the corset or to wire the underline as seen. This is a closer view of what it looks like. If you don't have that under wire that is usually used for this type of stuff, you can also use your boning, which I will be using. I'm going to use that very small boning. There's also another boning that is smaller than this, but this is what I have. So I'm just going to insert it into that space that I've created. And this is the only thing that is going to give my bust some support. Next, we'll move to the straps of the front piece. We are just going to place them just as you. Make sure to use your pattern paper to be sure you are doing the right thing, and that's why we do the arrow placement. So now we are going to place the lining on it, and we are going to sew up only this side as indicated. Now I'm going to place the straps right facing the fabric, just as in facing the main fabric, and then I'll bring my lining and I'll place it. Remember that all the process we've been doing it on the lining as well, except that we did not fix a boning in the lining. So we are going to sew up the neckline or the top area as indicated. This is a close view of what the top part looks like. Now you're going to take your time and notch along that top part, and we have to notch along the curve area so that it can relax properly when we flip it over and iron it down. Now we are done with the top piece. We'll move on to making the back piece. I'll rule a straight line on the starting points just as we did with the front piece. Right from that point as seen, I'll start marking my zip allowance, which I'm using 1.5 inch. I'll place my tape from the starting point and I'll mark to my bust point. I'll also mark to my under bust line, and I'll mark to my half length, which is also the same measurement we use for the front piece. For the neck width, I use 3 inches, and for the neck depth, I use 1.5 inch. Although we are not going to be using the neckline, then I went ahead to mark my shoulder measurement divided by 2. At that point, I came down by 1 inch for the shoulder slope, and I'll connect it to meet my neck width of 3 inches. From my shoulder measurement there, I'll mark downwards my round armhole measurement divided by 2, and I'll extend the line to the right side. I'll also find the midpoint of the length of my armhole line, which is 4 inches, and at that 4 inches, I'll just go ahead and connect a curve from that point there to the base of that armhole line. The side of my front piece ends at the armhole line, and I want it to be the same with the front piece. So I went ahead and I extended my armhole line forward, and that is going to be the starting line of the back piece, or let's say the chest line of the back piece. I'll mark my apex measurement, which is my nipple to nipple measurement, divided by 2, and I'll roll out a straight line just as seen. So in order to take my darts this time around, I'll focus on the waistline, which is also the half length. I will mark half an inch apart on both sides, and I'll connect it to meet the top part, which is the chest line just as seen. On the bust point line, I'll take my round bust measurement divided by 4, and then I would replace that dart measurement there. On the under bust, I'll do the same thing. After I take my under bust measurement, I'll replace that inches for the darts that we have there. Likewise to the half length or the full length. Now take out the zip bulge darts, which is going to enable me reduce any zip bulge. So on that waistline along the zip area, I marked 1 inch up and 1 inch down, and then I'll just connect it in a slanted form to meet that side just as seen. This way I'm not going to experience any zip bulge. So I'll go ahead and I'll cut this out, and I'll just tape it together as seen. This is exactly how my back piece will look like. Now I'll mark my strap, which I'm still using the same 2 inches. You can just decide to cut it straight, but I decided to go ahead to give it this curved look, which is optional. I'll also do my arrow placement indicating how these patterns should be, so we don't mix them up when we are cutting it on the fabric. So I'll go ahead and I'll cut the pattern out, and this is what my back piece looks like. My back piece is in 3 pieces, the 2 lower bodies and the strap. So I'll just go ahead and transfer it to my fabric. Added half an inch all around, except for the side seam allowance that I would use 1 inch, and then this is what it looks like. So now we are going to start sewing. Make sure to do the same thing you are doing to the lining as well. We are going to join the lower bodies first. Remember, we cut them in 2 separate pieces, 2 for the left side and then 2 for the right side. So I'll just arrange it up. This is exactly what your back piece should look like. So we are going to place them on each other, and we are going to sew along that dart. You sew the allowance you added there, and it should look like this. Also, make sure to open up your seams with your iron whenever you are done. So now we are going to sew the straps, and we are going to sew it the same way we did with the front straps. We are going to sew only this part as indicated, and then we are going to iron it. And now we are going to flip it over to the right face, iron, and place the right face on the right face of the main piece, and then we'll sew it. We are going to use the lining to turn the top part, same way we did to the front piece. After sewing it, now we are going to flip it to the right face, and we are going to iron this down properly. So this way our back piece is already prepped. We are just going to join it to the front piece before we move over to the lower bodice. So now that it's prepped, we are going to bring back the front piece and just place them right face facing each other. You will see how beautiful everything looks, and we are going to sew the sewing allowance that is left on the side area. Now we are going to join the sleeves together, and I'm just going to show you my sewing machine. I don't know how to explain this properly, but just make sure to hold the main piece and then hold the lining so that the sewing or the rough edges is going to be inside, it's not going to be outside. I think this is a popular way of joining your shoulders together. Don't know if you don't already know, this is how to do it. And then this is what our whole top piece is looking like. Everything is looking very beautiful. And now we'll move over to making the lower bodice. In order to make the lower bodice, I'm going to use my lining. I'm going to fold my lining into 4. Whatever is left of my lining, I'll fold it into 4 so that I can create a base where I can make these gathers on. And the perfect way to do it for me is to make a 360-degree flay. That is a full circle flay. I'll place my tape as seen, and I'm going to mark 25 inches all around, and I will cut it out. That way I will have a full circle. You can decide to use another measurement depending on the length you want. After marking all around 25 inches, the lining was short, so I'll just go ahead and I'll complete that. And your lining does not have to be very long, like I said, depending on the length you are working with, but you can still use my measurements. You saw the results it gave me. So I'll go ahead and I'll just flip this over like this so that I'll be able to trim off the excess lining that is hanging there. That was after I had joined it already. I'll bring back my top piece and I'll open it up. Now I'm going to take the measurements of the lower bodice of this top piece. That's the waistline, which is going to include the zip allowance. That is now going to be the waist measurement I will use. So I'll just measure it to take out that measurement so that I'll be able to get the waistline of the skirt. The waist measurement is 34, so I'll divide it by 4, which gives me 8.5. I'll go ahead to divide it by 2 again, which gives me 4.25, and that's the measurement I will use to cut the waistline of this. Now I'm going to start marking downwards 4.25 inches. I'm just going to mark it in a round form just as seen, and I'll cut it out. Now I'll open up my full circled lining, and I'm going to cut out one side of this so that I can have like an opening to this. So just cut out any side at all you want to cut out. Now I'm going to bring back my top piece and I'm going to join this to the lining. So if you took your measurements well, your lining piece should be the same with the waistline of your top. But just in case it's not the same, you can just go ahead and reduce maybe 1 inch all around so you get the exact measurement you need. I'll take this to my sewing machine and I'm going to join the lining to the top piece, and I'm going to join it in such a way that the rough edges is going to be facing the right face. So far, this is what it looks like. The remaining piece of fabric I have here is 2.5 yards, and I'm going to use all of it to make gathers for the lower bodice. I'll fold everything into 4 and I'm going to cut it out. I'm going to start cutting 10 inches. That was what I used, of which I later on reduced the flay of this. Like I said, the measurement can change depending on what you want. But so far, I cut this to 10 inches, and then I later reduced the length because the 10 inches was too long. I realized the shorter the flay, the more beautiful it looks. For the first layer of gathers I'll be making, I'll take out just one piece of this and I'm going to gather it up. I'm going to sew a very loose straight stitch, just a regular stitch. Just make sure that your stitch is not tight, and you are going to sew all through to the end of the piece of the fabric. Once you are done sewing, you will go ahead and you start picking the thread. You pick one of the thread and then you start dragging it. That way the fabric is going to gather up. There are other methods of gathering your fabric, but this method is the best because if you want to adjust it, you can still go ahead and readjust it, and that makes it easier. This is what the gathered fabric looks like, and now I'm going to attach it to the dress. So for the first layer of the gathers, I'm going to attach it to the part where I have the lining joined to the top part. And this is a close view of how I'm going to be joining the gathers to it as seen. So that this way, this rough edges is going to be hidden in between the first layer and the lining. It's not going to show on either the good face or the wrong face. So far, this is what the first layer of the gather is looking like, and this is exactly what I was talking about. Now we're going to go ahead to attach the second and the third one. So I placed the whole dress on the floor and I'm going to fold round everything up, so it's going to give me that circled look that the lining initially has. And now from where we have the first flay or the first gathers, I'm going to start marking downwards 5 inches. You're going to take your time to mark this well so that everything is on the same line, no one is higher than the other one, and that's why I'm using my marker. I'll first of all mark 5 inches from where we have the first gathers, and after that I'm going to start marking another 5 inches from where we have this first 5 inches marked. We're still going to mark another 5 inches. This line I'm marking out is the places where I'm going to be sewing the remaining gathers to. So for this first line is going to be the second flay or the second gather, and then the third line is going to be for the third gather. So if your lining becomes too longer than your gathers, make sure to trim it off. And also you can join this at maybe 4 or 3 inches depending on how long you want it to be. Your measurements can change, but you can also use mine if you want my results. Now I'll bring the remaining pieces of fabric I have left and I'm going to join all of them together so I can have a very long piece of fabric. Then I can go and make gathers and attach. What you need to know is that the more you keep going down, the more gathers you will need because of how this circled flay is. Now start placing the second gathers on the part where I marked just as seen, and I'm going to sew it up as indicated. So far, this is what the second flay is looking like, and I'll proceed to repeat the same process to the third layer of gathers that we are supposed to attach to it. So I'm currently attaching the third gathers to this, and this is what they all look like. This is the first gather, the second one, and then we have the third one. So we'll just go ahead and repeat the same sewing process we did to this one. So after attaching the third flay, you guys, I did not like how long the gathers were looking. They were looking so long, so I will just put the video of the gathers in a shorter length, and this is what it looks like. I prefer the shorter length. I don't know which one you prefer. Let me know in the comment section. After reducing the length, I went ahead to arrange everything up so I can close up the back piece. So remember that our sewing allowance is 1.5 inch. We are going to sew 1.5 inch and we are also going to fix zip upwards. Just make sure to bring your zip down from your waistline. The last step will be creating the sleeve, and for the sleeve I did not use any measurement at all. I just made sure that the way I cut out the sleeve, it was way bigger than what my actual armhole measurement is, or the armhole of the dress is. So just fold up your sleeve just as seen, and then go ahead and cut like that. And then we are going to first of all make gathers at the top part, and once we are done making the gathers, we'll pull it up together just as seen in the video. Then for the lower part of the sleeve, I'm going to use my elastic to make some like a ruffle, like to give it a bit of effect on the lower side. after which I'm going to join the sleeve to the dress. Yeah, and after joining it together, you should have a result that looks like this. This brings us to the end of this tutorial. If you watched to this point and you've not subscribed yet, please do well to hit the subscribe button and also turn on post notifications so you get notified every time we post a new video. And that being said, see you in my next video. Bye.